Sergei Pavlovich will destroy Waldo Cortes Acosta.
Sergei Pavlovich!
Sergei Pavlovich, that motherfucking bomb.
Oh!
This dude's scary.
No one wants any of this.
When this guy starts throwing punches in the octagon, my goodness, he's looking to absolutely knock your head up into the top rope.
Oh! Pavlovich hits like a monster! Sergei hits so hard! That's it! Sergei Pavlovich! Wow!
Sergei vs. Waldo are set for the main card of UFC Shanghai, and although Waldo has been on a win streak, and although he is new blood at the top half of the heavyweight division, I'm here to tell you that Sergei Pavlovich will not only beat Waldo, but he'll also finish him as well. But quickly, before we get the video started, for those of you who may not know, I'm JuicyMMA, I make opinionated MMA content, and if you guys enjoy videos similar to this, hit that subscribe button, that like button, and that post notification bell. Also, if you guys are enjoying the content and want to support the channel, be sure to hit that join button for members only live streams, videos, alongside with other perks as well. But anyways, let's get into it. When you look at the career of Sergei Pavlovich, it feels like he's had two separate careers. His first career was when he was having all his success, as in 2022 and in part in 2023, he was knocking everybody out. As in 2022, he got 3 first-round TKOs, beating guys like Tai Tuivasa and Derek Lewis, and in 2023, he got once again a first-round TKO over Curtis Blaydes. And at that point, Curtis Blaydes was by far the best win of his career. But unfortunately, there was another half to Sergei Pavlovich's career, as when he went up against the UFC's best at the heavyweight division, he struggled. As when you look back at his interim title shot versus Tom Aspinall, he ended up getting knocked out in the first round. Yes, Sergei did have some success in that fight, as he did land a couple of big shots on Tom, but at the end of the day, it just felt like Tom was way faster, way more skilled, and eventually he was able to get that first round knockout over Sergei Pavlovich. In Sergei's next fight after that, he ended up losing a pretty dominant decision loss to Alexander Volkov, as Volkov was kind of just dominating, skirting alongside the cage, and picking Sergei Pavlovich apart. Now, of course, in Sergei's most recent fight, he was able to get a decision victory over Jairzinho Rozenstruik, but at this point, after his 2 losses to Tom Aspinall and Alexander Volkov, it does feel like the public sentiment is very different on Sergei Pavlovich. But a question that some of you may be wondering at this point is, what specifically does Sergei Pavlovich do out there that has made him so successful thus far? Well, in my opinion, I think it comes down to a couple different factors, but the first factor I want to touch upon is his distance management. Now, I talk about this in a lot of my videos, but usually when you're talking about some of the better or some of the best strikers in the UFC, they have tremendous distance management. Prime Conor McGregor was a prime example of how important distance management is. And when you watch Sergei Pavlovich out there, he has great distance management. I know a lot of times in some of his fights that he does win, it does seem like he's just brawling out there. But one thing that Sergei has an advantage of over his opponents is his reach is essentially longer than anybody's in the entire heavyweight division. So what Sergei does out there is, yes, he does brawl, but he brawls at a range where he's able to land big shots on his opponents, but his opponents can't land big shots on him. As when you look back specifically on his 2 fights versus Tai Tuivasa and Derek Lewis, we saw exactly that, as Sergei was not only able to get a quick first round finish, but within those fights, he was landing huge shots on both Tai and Derek Lewis, and both of those guys weren't really able to land any shots on Sergei Pavlovich. So his understanding of distance, I think, has a real effect on why he's been so successful thus far. But the next factor in why I think Sergei Pavlovich has been so successful thus far is due to his boxing. Now, as I mentioned before, it does look like Sergei Pavlovich is just brawling out there, which in part he is, but at the same time, he does do a pretty good job at utilizing his technical boxing to have an edge over his opponents. At the heavyweight division, as I talked about in length, there's not too many amazing fighters at that weight class, but the fact that Sergei Pavlovich is a pretty technical boxer out there really gives him a huge advantage over essentially everybody at that weight class. He's able to do a good job at throwing jabs technically, right hands technically, hooks, crosses, and uppercuts as well at times very technically, and that technical advantage that he has allows him to land cleaner shots on his opponents, and when Sergei Pavlovich is able to land clean on you, you're most likely going to go out. So I do think his boxing ability is also a huge reason for why he's been so successful thus far. But the last reason for why I think Sergei Pavlovich has been able to be so successful thus far is due to his physicality. Now, I know I'd mentioned physicality a lot in my videos, but but it's very important. When you look at some of the UFC's best fighters or even some of the UFC's champions, they're all very physical. And when you look at Sergei Pavlovich, he's even more physical than most guys in UFC. As he hits ridiculously hard, as I touched upon before, if he's able to land clean on you, you're most likely going to go out, but also at the same time, he has shown an amazing chin. He's taken some huge shots throughout his career, and yes, he was knocked out by a perfect shot from a really hard hitter in Tom Aspinall, but outside of the Tom Aspinall fight, Sergei has shown a really good chin. And I do think a big reason for why he's so successful at the UFC's heavyweight division in part is due to his physicality. He does get into a lot of quote-unquote brawls, and there are occasions where he does take big shots, but the fact that he's able to eat a lot of the big shots coming back his way, alongside with the fact that he hits so hard, in my opinion, is a huge reason for why Sergei has been able to be so successful thus far. But another question that some of you may be wondering at this point is why specifically do I think Sergei Pavlovich is going to destroy Waldo Cortes Acosta? Well, in my opinion, the first reason for why I feel this way is due to the striking. Because when you watch Waldo strike out there, he definitely does have decent skills on the feet. But on the feet, what Waldo likes to do is fight at a slower pace. He likes to be able to see a lot of the shots coming back his way while also at the same time landing a couple shots back. But when you talk about the way Sergei Pavlovich strikes out there, he essentially looks to brawl. He'll pressure you, throw a lot of shots, and he essentially forces you into a firefight. So I think in a firefight between Waldo and Sergei is definitely going to have the edge, as he's more technical, more used to fighting in brawls, has the power advantage, has the reach advantage, and honestly most likely even has the chin advantage in that sort of fight. But even outside of a brawl, if this fight does turn out to be a slower sort of fight after the first round, I still think Sergei Pavlovich could have success. As I touched upon before, he is relatively technical, and when you look back at his fight against Jairzinho Rozenstruik, that was also a very slow and very tit-for-tat sort of fight, and Sergei was able to get the victory. It wasn't that dominant of a performance, but at the end of the day, he showed an ability to fight in a 3-round fight, a slower paced 3-round fight in that fact. So even if this fight does turn out to be a slower paced fight, I think Sergei still has somewhat of an advantage, as he is a lot more technical on the feet than Waldo Cortes Acosta is. Now, something that some of you may be thinking at this point is Waldo has a good ability to wrestle, and when Sergei has lost earlier on in his career, it was due to the fact that he got out-wrestled, which all that is definitely true, but at the end of the day, I think Sergei, as his career has been progressing, has shown a better ability to stop takedowns. And also, when you look at the wrestling pedigree of Waldo Cortes Acosta, it's not necessarily amazing. Really, the only guys that he was able to take down consistently was Rebeldes de Spain, and Rebeldes de Spain just was not able to stop a takedown whatsoever. But going into this fight against Sergei Pavlovich, I don't think the wrestling is going to be nearly as effective for Waldo. I think this is going to be a fight held on the feet for the most part, and as I said, if the fight's on the feet, I think the advantage definitely goes to Sergei Pavlovich. So at this point, if I had to give my official prediction for this matchup, I would be leaning with a Sergei Pavlovich first round TKO. I think he's going to get right back on track to what he was doing earlier on in his career, beating Waldo Cortes Acosta via a first round KO and go forward in the heavyweight division from there. But I guess only time will tell what does end up happening in this fight between Sergei Pavlovich and Waldo Cortes Acosta. But anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think Sergei Pavlovich is going to destroy Waldo Cortes Acosta, or do you not think so? But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did enjoy, check one of these two videos popping up now, and until the next time, peace out guys.